The saddest goodbyes are not spoken with anger. They are whispered by silence long before a door finally closes. Snow drifted gently beyond the tall windows of the Walker estate as Christmas Eve settled over Hartford, Connecticut. Inside the grand dining room, a table designed for 12 held a dinner prepared for two. Candlelight flickered against crystal glasses. A roasted turkey rested at the center of the table. Fresh rosemary scented the air. Every detail had been arranged with care by Olivia Brooks Walker, who stood quietly beside the Christmas tree adjusting a silver ornament that reflected the warm glow of hundreds of tiny lights. At 38 years old, Olivia had spent nearly 15 years married to Ethan Walker, one of the most successful chief executive officers in the region. To the outside world, they appeared to have everything: wealth, influence, a beautiful home. Yet appearances had become their own kind of prison. Olivia glanced at the clock above the fireplace. 8:37. Ethan had promised he would be home by 6. She checked her phone again. No new messages. No missed calls. Nothing. The silence was familiar now. Over the past 2 years, it had become the soundtrack of her marriage. She walked to the kitchen and poured herself a cup of coffee. Outside, snow continued falling across the estate grounds, covering the gardens and pathways in white. Christmas music played softly through hidden speakers. The house looked perfect. It just no longer felt alive. Her phone vibrated suddenly. Hope rose instinctively before she looked at the screen. Ethan's name appeared. Olivia answered immediately. "Hi." His voice sounded distracted. "I am sorry. Something came up." Olivia closed her eyes briefly. Again, a pause followed. "It is an important client situation." She had heard similar explanations many times before. "Will you make it home tonight?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Probably not." Olivia stared at the Christmas tree. "I understand." Ethan seemed relieved by her calm response. "Thank you." The call ended seconds later. No Merry Christmas. No apology beyond habit. No attempt to ask how she felt. Olivia slowly lowered the phone. The disappointment did not hurt the way it once had. Perhaps that was the most painful part. Around 9 o'clock, she carried her untouched dinner plate back into the kitchen. While rinsing dishes, a notification appeared on her phone. One of Ethan's business associates had posted photographs from a luxury Christmas gathering at an upscale resort outside the city. Olivia almost ignored it. Then she saw him. Ethan stood smiling beside Vanessa Clark. Vanessa was not a client. She was not a colleague. Olivia had known about her for months. The photographs showed them laughing beside a decorated Christmas tree beneath strings of golden lights. One image captured Ethan looking happier than she had seen him look in years. Olivia studied the screen quietly. No tears came. No dramatic reaction. Only clarity. The kind that arrives after a long season of pretending not to see the truth. She set the phone down and walked slowly through the mansion. The living room. The library. The hallway she had decorated every Christmas since their first year of marriage. Everywhere she looked, she saw evidence of effort, of loyalty, of years spent trying to save something another person had already abandoned. Finally, she entered their bedroom. Snow tapped softly against the windows. The room felt strangely peaceful. Olivia opened the drawer of her nightstand and removed her wedding ring. For several seconds, she studied the small band of gold resting in her palm. Then she placed it carefully on the dresser beside a framed photograph taken long ago when both she and Ethan still believed forever was guaranteed. Standing alone in the quiet room while Christmas lights shimmered below, Olivia made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. The snow continued falling long after midnight. Outside the Walker estate, the world seemed wrapped in silence. Every tree and rooftop softened beneath a blanket of white. Inside, Olivia Brooks Walker sat alone in the small study adjacent to the library. A single lamp illuminated the desk where she had spent countless evenings helping Ethan organize charity events, business dinners, and family celebrations. Tonight, however, she was doing something entirely different. In front of her rested a sheet of cream-colored stationery. The blank page waited patiently while she considered what 15 years of marriage could possibly be reduced to. Surprisingly, the answer came quickly. Not because there was nothing left to say, but because she was too tired to repeat everything that had already gone unheard. Olivia picked up her pen and began writing. The words arrived calmly. No accusations. No dramatic questions. No attempt to make Ethan feel guilty. She simply told the truth. She wrote that she hoped he found whatever happiness he had been searching for. She wrote that she no longer wished to compete with distractions, priorities, and people who always seemed to matter more than the woman waiting at home. Most importantly, she wrote that she was leaving not because she hated him, but because she finally respected herself enough to stop accepting less than she deserved. When she finished, she folded the letter neatly and placed it inside an envelope. Then she wrote Ethan's name across the front. Looking at the envelope, she felt something unexpected. Relief. The kind that arrives when a difficult decision has finally been made. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, Olivia quietly packed a single suitcase. She moved through the bedroom without hesitation. A few dresses, several sweaters, personal documents, family photographs that belonged to her. She left almost everything else behind. Expensive jewelry remained untouched inside drawers. Designer handbags stayed in their closets. None of those things represented the life she wanted anymore. At the bottom of one box, she found a photograph taken during their first Christmas as newlyweds. Ethan stood behind her with his arms around her shoulders. Both were smiling, young, hopeful, certain about the future. Olivia studied the image for several seconds before placing it gently back where she found it. Some memories deserved to stay in the past. By 2 o'clock, everything was ready. The suitcase stood near the front entrance beside her coat. The Christmas tree still glowed softly in the living room. Presents remained arranged beneath its branches. Looking around the mansion, Olivia felt sadness, but not regret. She had fought for this marriage longer than anyone knew. She had attended counseling sessions alone when Ethan became too busy. She had canceled vacations to accommodate his schedule. She had defended him to friends who questioned his behavior. She had given chance after chance after chance. Eventually, love without effort becomes grief wearing a hopeful disguise. Before leaving, Olivia returned to the bedroom one final time. The wedding ring still rested beside the framed photograph. Carefully, she placed the envelope beside it. Then she turned off the lamp and walked away. No dramatic farewell. No final phone call. No attempt to interrupt Ethan's evening. Her silence would say everything words no longer could. A black car arrived shortly before 3 o'clock. The driver loaded her suitcase while snow drifted through the cold December air. Olivia paused at the front steps and looked back toward the estate. Thousands of Christmas lights shimmered against the darkness. For years she believed this house represented success. Tonight she realized that a beautiful home means very little when the people inside it stop choosing one another. She climbed into the vehicle and quietly closed the door. As the car disappeared through the gates, the Walker estate remained illuminated behind her. Yet for the first time in 15 years, Olivia was no longer looking back. She was finally moving forward. And many miles away, Ethan Walker was still celebrating a future he believed he wanted, completely unaware that the most important person in his life had just walked away forever. Christmas morning arrived beneath a sky the color of silver. Sunlight reflected softly across the snow-covered grounds surrounding the Walker estate as Ethan Walker opened his eyes inside a luxury suite several miles from home. For the first time in years, he felt strangely relaxed. The previous evening had been filled with expensive dinners, holiday music, and conversations that required very little effort. There had been no difficult questions, no uncomfortable silences, no reminders of responsibilities waiting at home. As he poured himself a cup of coffee and glanced out the window, he convinced himself that perhaps life had become simpler, easier. Freedom, he thought, felt surprisingly comfortable. Around 10 o'clock, he drove back toward the estate. Christmas music played quietly through the vehicle speakers while snow lined both sides of the road. Several unread messages waited on his phone, but none came from Olivia. The absence barely registered. Over the years, he had become accustomed to her patience. If she was upset, she would eventually calm down. If she was disappointed, she would forgive him. That had always been the pattern. Ethan assumed this time would be no different. The gates opened automatically as he approached the property. The mansion stood beautifully decorated beneath the winter sunlight. Thousands of Christmas lights remained illuminated against the white landscape. Everything appeared normal. Yet the moment Ethan stepped inside, something felt different. The house was quiet, not peaceful, empty. He removed his coat and looked around the main hall. No scent of breakfast drifted from the kitchen. No music played through the speakers. No familiar movement echoed through the corridors. He frowned slightly. Olivia. His voice disappeared into the silence. No answer came. Ethan walked into the dining room. The Christmas table remained exactly as it had been prepared the night before. Candles sat untouched. Crystal glasses remained perfectly arranged. 2 dinner plates still rested where they had been placed. It looked less like a celebration and more like a photograph frozen in time. A strange feeling settled in his chest. He pulled out his phone and called Olivia. The call immediately went to voicemail. He tried again. The same result. Irritation replaced concern. She was angry. That had to be the explanation. Ethan walked upstairs toward their bedroom. As he opened the door, he noticed something missing almost immediately. Several drawers stood partially empty. A section of the closet contained noticeable gaps. The room itself looked organized, but not lived in. Then he saw the wedding ring. It rested on the dresser beside a sealed envelope. Suddenly, the silence inside the mansion felt much louder. Slowly, Ethan crossed the room and picked up the envelope. His name was written across the front in Olivia's familiar handwriting. For a moment, he simply stared at it. Then he opened the letter. The message was brief, calm, respectful. There were no accusations, no dramatic ultimatums, no demands. That somehow made it worse. Olivia explained that she was leaving because she could no longer remain in a marriage where she felt invisible. She thanked him for the good years they shared. She wished him happiness. And then she said goodbye. Ethan read the letter twice. Then a third time. None of it made sense. Olivia did not leave. Olivia stayed. She always stayed. That certainty had existed for so long, he treated it like a law of nature. Yet now the empty closet stood directly in front of him, proving he had been wrong. He immediately called again. Voicemail. He sent a text. No response. For the first time all morning, unease began replacing confidence. Walking through the silent mansion, Ethan suddenly noticed things he had overlooked for years. The fresh flowers arranged throughout the house. The holiday decorations carefully placed in every room. The warmth that usually greeted him whenever he returned home. None of those things happened by accident. They happened because Olivia made them happen. Standing alone beside the Christmas tree she decorated without him, Ethan experienced an unfamiliar feeling. It was not heartbreak. Not yet. It was the first quiet crack in the illusion that the person waiting at home would always be there no matter how little he gave in return. The days following Christmas passed with an unsettling quiet that Ethan Walker could not escape. At first, he convinced himself Olivia simply needed time. She would answer eventually. She always had before. Yet every call went unanswered. Every message remained unread. The confidence he carried on Christmas morning slowly began giving way to something far less comfortable. By New Year's Eve, the mansion no longer felt luxurious. It felt empty. One morning, Ethan walked into the kitchen expecting coffee waiting beside the newspaper, a habit so routine he never questioned it. Instead, he found cold countertops and silence. The realization irritated him at first. Then it embarrassed him. He had spent years enjoying hundreds of small acts of care without ever acknowledging the person providing them. As January settled over Hartford, those missing details appeared everywhere. Meetings were forgotten because Olivia was no longer managing his personal calendar. Important birthday gifts for clients went unsent because she had always remembered them. Charity events he routinely attended were suddenly filled with logistical problems because she had quietly organized everything behind the scenes. The more Ethan looked, the more evidence he discovered. His life had been functioning smoothly for years because Olivia was constantly solving problems before he ever noticed them. One snowy afternoon, while searching for a financial document in the home office, Ethan opened a filing cabinet rarely touched. Inside were carefully labeled folders arranged with remarkable precision. Medical records, tax documents, business correspondence, household contracts, everything organized. As he sorted through the files, he noticed several folders carrying Olivia's handwriting. Curious, he opened one. His expression slowly changed. The folder contained records from 3 years earlier when one of Ethan's companies experienced a serious financial setback. Investors had become nervous. Public pressure had increased. Ethan remembered that period clearly because it nearly destroyed him professionally. What he did not remember was how many private problems Olivia handled alone during the same months. Page after page revealed meetings she attended on his behalf, charitable commitments she fulfilled, and financial arrangements she negotiated to protect the family's reputation. She never mentioned any of it. Another folder revealed something even more surprising. During the same year, Olivia had quietly sold several personal heirlooms inherited from her grandmother. Ethan stared at the documents in disbelief. The funds had been used to support a community scholarship program, carrying his company name after sponsorship funding unexpectedly disappeared. He sat down heavily in the office chair. The scholarship program later became one of the most celebrated charitable initiatives associated with his business. Newspapers praised his leadership. Executives congratulated his generosity. Yet Olivia had never told anyone she helped save it. Ethan continued reading. The deeper he looked, the more uncomfortable the truth became. For years he believed he was carrying the marriage, providing the lifestyle, funding the opportunities, building the success. The documents told a different story. Olivia had been carrying far more than he ever understood. Not because she had to, because she loved him. As evening approached, Ethan wandered through the mansion holding several folders beneath his arm. He entered the library and sat beside the fireplace. Outside, snow drifted across the darkening landscape. The Christmas decorations remained throughout the house, but their warmth seemed distant now. For the first time, Ethan stopped asking why Olivia left. Instead, he found himself asking a far more painful question. Why had she stayed so long? The answer lingered heavily in the quiet room. She stayed because she believed in their marriage. She stayed because she loved him. She stayed because she hoped he would eventually notice what stood directly in front of him. Looking around the silent mansion, Ethan felt something unfamiliar settle inside his chest. It was not loneliness. It was regret. And unlike the snow outside, it showed no signs of melting anytime soon. By the middle of January, the silence inside the Walker estate had become impossible for Ethan to ignore. Every room seemed to hold a memory he had overlooked while it was happening. Every hallway reminded him of conversations he rushed through. Every quiet evening exposed how much of his life had depended on a woman he barely noticed until she was gone. Yet the most difficult discoveries were still ahead. One afternoon, Ethan attended a board meeting at his company headquarters. Normally, Olivia accompanied him to important charity and community events connected to the business. This time, he arrived alone. At first, nobody mentioned it. Then, during a break between presentations, one of the senior board members approached him. "How is Olivia doing?" Ethan hesitated. "We are taking some time apart." The older man looked genuinely surprised. "That is unfortunate." Ethan nodded politely, expecting the conversation to end. Instead, the board member smiled sadly. "Your wife is one of the finest people I have ever worked with." The comment caught him off guard. Throughout the rest of the day, similar conversations repeated themselves. A nonprofit director spoke about how Olivia personally secured funding for a youth mentoring program when donations unexpectedly fell short. A school principal described how she spent weekends helping organize scholarship interviews. Another executive recalled a period when Ethan was traveling constantly and Olivia quietly represented the company at dozens of community events. By the time the meeting ended, Ethan felt unsettled. Everyone seemed to know a version of Olivia he never bothered to see. That evening, he returned to the mansion carrying a growing sense of shame. The following week brought another revelation. While reviewing archived correspondence connected to the company's charitable foundation, Ethan discovered dozens of letters addressed directly to Olivia. Many came from students whose scholarships had changed their lives. Others came from families she helped through difficult circumstances. One letter in particular captured his attention. It was written by a young woman who recently graduated from medical school. The writer explained that years earlier, when financial hardship threatened to end her education, Olivia personally ensured she received support. The woman ended the letter with a sentence Ethan could not stop reading. "You taught me that kindness is often performed by people who never ask for recognition." Ethan sat alone in the library holding the letter long after sunset. Slowly, the truth became unavoidable. Olivia had spent years building a meaningful life while he focused almost entirely on building a successful career. The contrast was painful. One snowy Saturday afternoon, Margaret entered the library carrying tea. She had worked for the Walker family long enough to speak honestly when necessary. Setting the tray down, she studied Ethan carefully. "You finally see it now, do you not?" Ethan looked up. "See what?" Margaret sighed gently. How hard she tried. The room fell silent. Ethan stared into his coffee. "Why did nobody tell me?" Margaret offered a sad smile, because she never wanted credit. Her answer hurt more than criticism ever could. Later that evening, Ethan wandered through the mansion once again. This time he entered a small sitting room rarely used. Inside stood shelves filled with photo albums. Curious, he pulled one from the collection. Hours passed as he turned page after page. Christmas mornings, anniversary trips, family gatherings, charity events. In nearly every photograph, Olivia smiled warmly. Looking closer, Ethan noticed something heartbreaking. The photographs documented years of effort, years of showing up, years of choosing their marriage even when he stopped doing the same. As midnight approached, Ethan sat alone beside the fireplace with albums spread across the coffee table. Snow drifted quietly beyond the windows. For the first time since Olivia left, he allowed himself to admit a truth he had been avoiding. Vanessa had never been the reason his marriage ended. She was only a symptom of choices he made long before Christmas arrived. The real problem was far more painful. Ethan spent years assuming Olivia would always remain exactly where he left her. Waiting, forgiving, understanding. Now she was gone. And for the first time in his life, success, wealth, and status felt completely meaningless compared to the one thing he could not buy back. Winter eventually surrendered to spring, and spring gave way to summer. Seasons changed with quiet determination, carrying life forward whether people were ready or not. For Ethan Walker, the passing months felt less like progress and more like punishment. The mansion remained beautiful. His company continued growing. Awards still arrived. Business magazines still requested interviews. Yet none of it brought satisfaction anymore. Success had become strangely hollow. Every achievement seemed accompanied by the same thought. Olivia should have been here. Meanwhile, Olivia Brooks Walker was building a life few people could have imagined on the night she left. She settled in Boston and devoted herself to work she genuinely loved. Drawing upon years of charitable experience, she established a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting women rebuilding their lives after personal hardship. The project began modestly. A small office, a handful of volunteers, limited funding. But Olivia possessed something more valuable than money. She understood resilience. She understood how loneliness felt. She understood what happened when people stopped believing in their own worth. Within a year, the organization expanded beyond anyone's expectations. Local newspapers highlighted its success. Community leaders praised its impact. Donations increased steadily. Hundreds of women found support through programs Olivia personally helped create. For the first time in many years, she was not living in the shadow of someone else's accomplishments. She was creating her own. One December evening, nearly a year after the Christmas that changed everything, Hartford's largest annual charity gala filled a historic hotel ballroom with business leaders, philanthropists, and community advocates. Ethan attended reluctantly. Public appearances had become exhausting. He smiled when expected, shook hands when necessary, delivered speeches when required. Yet his heart remained elsewhere. The ballroom sparkled beneath crystal chandeliers as guests gathered around elegantly decorated tables. Ethan listened absently to introductions until a familiar name echoed through the room. Suddenly, his attention sharpened. The master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage. This year's Humanitarian Leadership Award recognizes an individual whose dedication has transformed countless lives throughout New England. Applause filled the room. Ethan barely heard it. The presenter continued speaking. Her organization has become a beacon of hope for women seeking new beginnings. Please join me in welcoming Olivia Brooks. For several seconds, Ethan simply stared. Then she appeared. The ballroom seemed to fall silent. Olivia crossed the stage with calm confidence, dressed in an elegant emerald gown that reflected the holiday lights surrounding the room. Her posture was graceful. Her smile was genuine. Most striking of all, she looked happy. Not the forced happiness people display for cameras. Real happiness. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are. Ethan felt something tighten inside his chest. This was not the woman who quietly left the mansion carrying a single suitcase. This was a woman who had rebuilt herself completely. As Olivia accepted the award, she delivered a brief speech. She thanked volunteers, donors, and community partners. She spoke about courage, dignity, and second chances. She never mentioned her marriage. She never mentioned heartbreak. Yet every word reflected lessons she earned through both. The audience responded with a standing ovation. Ethan remained frozen in place. Watching her receive admiration from hundreds of people should have made him proud. Instead, it revealed the true cost of what he lost. Throughout the evening, he observed guests approaching Olivia. They respected her, valued her, celebrated her achievements. The realization was almost unbearable. For years, he had searched elsewhere for fulfillment while overlooking the extraordinary woman already standing beside him. As the gala continued around him, Ethan understood something with painful clarity. Olivia had not simply survived after leaving. She had flourished, and seeing her shine without him forced him to confront the truth he had spent 12 months avoiding. The greatest loss of his life was not the marriage that ended. It was failing to recognize her worth while he still had the chance. The gala ended, but its impact followed Ethan Walker long after the ballroom lights dimmed. During the drive home through the cold December night, he barely noticed the city passing outside his window. His thoughts remained fixed on Olivia. The image refused to leave him. Her confidence, her smile, the way she carried herself without bitterness. Most of all, the way she no longer seemed to need him. That realization hurt more than he expected. For an entire year, Ethan imagined reconciliation as something he could eventually achieve if he worked hard enough. Yet seeing Olivia again forced him to confront a difficult possibility. She had already built a complete life without him. The following morning, he found himself replaying every moment of the gala. Every conversation, every glance, every smile she offered others, but never once directed toward him. It was not cruelty. Olivia had been polite throughout the evening. Warm even, but there was a distance in her eyes that had never existed before. She looked at him the way people look at old photographs, with respect for what once was, but no desire to return to it. Several days later, Ethan received an invitation to a fundraising luncheon hosted by Olivia's organization. Under normal circumstances, he might have declined. Instead, he accepted immediately. He told himself it was because the cause deserved support. Deep down, he knew the truth. He simply wanted another chance to see her. The event took place inside a renovated historic building overlooking Boston Harbor. Unlike the luxury galas Ethan normally attended, the atmosphere felt genuine and personal. Volunteers greeted guests warmly. Program participants shared stories about rebuilding their lives. Everywhere Ethan looked, he saw evidence of Olivia's influence. Compassion had become the foundation of everything she created. During the luncheon, several people approached Olivia. Young women thanked her for mentorship. Donors praised her leadership. Community leaders sought her advice. Ethan watched quietly from across the room. Something became painfully obvious. People did not admire Olivia because of her title. They admired her because of her character. He wondered how many years he spent standing beside that character without fully appreciating it. Eventually, their paths crossed near a display highlighting the organization's accomplishments. For a brief moment, they stood alone. Olivia smiled politely. "Thank you for coming." Ethan nodded. "I would not have missed it." The conversation that followed was simple, safe. They discussed the event, the organization, and mutual acquaintances. Yet beneath every word lingered things neither mentioned. Regret, loss, unanswered questions. As guests continued moving around them, Ethan finally gathered enough courage to speak honestly. "You have accomplished something remarkable." Olivia thanked him sincerely. Then she glanced toward the crowd. "A lot of people helped make it possible." Ethan shook his head. "No, this happened because of you." For a moment, Olivia seemed uncertain how to respond. The silence that followed felt heavier than any speech. Ethan lowered his voice. "I should have said things like that years ago." Olivia looked at him carefully. There was kindness in her expression, but there was caution too, the kind that comes from lessons learned through pain. "Perhaps," she replied gently. The simplicity of her answer struck harder than criticism ever could. Later, as the event concluded, Ethan watched her move through the room one final time. Everyone seemed drawn to her light, to her confidence, to the peace she carried within herself. Suddenly, he understood something that had taken him far too long to learn. The tragedy was not that he lost Olivia. The tragedy was that he failed to see her value while she was still standing beside him. As winter sunlight reflected across Boston Harbor outside the windows, Ethan experienced the full weight of regret. Not dramatic regret, not self-pity, something deeper. The understanding that some opportunities disappear forever once neglected. Yet despite the pain, a small part of him remained hopeful. Not because he expected forgiveness, not because he deserved another chance, but because for the first time in many years, he was finally becoming the man Olivia had believed he could be all along. The following December arrived carrying familiar sights and familiar memories. Snow once again covered the streets of Hartford. Storefront windows glowed with holiday decorations. Christmas music drifted through restaurants and office buildings. Yet for Ethan Walker, the season no longer represented celebration. It represented a choice he could never forget and a woman he still had not stopped missing. Over the previous year, many things had changed. Ethan ended every remaining connection that tied him to the life he once used as an escape. He devoted more time to charitable initiatives. He became more present in the communities his company served. Employees noticed the difference. Friends noticed it too. Yet the most important person had not witnessed most of those changes. Olivia continued building her organization, expanding its reach across multiple states. Her work received national recognition. Interviews appeared in magazines. Invitations arrived from conferences and nonprofit networks around the country. Success had followed her, but she carried it with the same quiet grace she always possessed. Then, in early December, an announcement appeared that immediately captured Ethan's attention. Olivia's organization would host a major holiday fundraiser in Hartford. Hundreds of guests were expected. Business leaders, community advocates, and media representatives planned to attend. Ethan purchased a ticket without hesitation. The event took place inside a beautifully restored theater decorated with elegant holiday lights and towering Christmas trees. The atmosphere felt festive, yet meaningful. Every detail reflected Olivia's belief that dignity and compassion deserved celebration. As guests filled the venue, Ethan remained near the back of the room. He had not come to impress anyone. He had not come to reclaim a place in Olivia's life. He came because he needed to say something that should have been said long ago. The evening progressed through speeches, presentations, and fundraising announcements. Finally, Olivia stepped onto the stage. Applause filled the theater immediately. She thanked volunteers, supporters, and participants who helped transform countless lives throughout the year. Her voice remained steady, warm, genuine. Ethan listened carefully to every word. Not because she was speaking to the audience, because he knew she was the person he should have been listening to all along. Near the conclusion of the program, organizers invited several major donors and sponsors onto the stage. Ethan's name was among them. A brief murmur spread through the audience as he walked forward. Olivia appeared surprised but remained composed. Standing beneath the stage lights, Ethan accepted the microphone. For a moment, he simply looked toward the audience. Then he spoke. He did not discuss business achievements. He did not mention financial contributions. Instead, he told the truth. He spoke about taking loyalty for granted, about becoming so focused on success that he failed to appreciate the people who made that success meaningful. The theater grew silent. Every word carried sincerity rather than performance. Finally, Ethan turned toward Olivia. Thousands of lights reflected softly throughout the room as he addressed her directly. There was a woman who spent years helping others while asking for nothing in return. She supported people through difficult seasons. She believed in them when they struggled to believe in themselves. His voice remained calm despite the emotion behind it. I was fortunate enough to spend many years beside her. Unfortunately, I did not recognize how extraordinary she was until she walked away. The audience listened quietly. No one moved. No one interrupted. Ethan continued. I am not standing here to ask for forgiveness. I am not standing here expecting a second chance. Some mistakes cannot be undone. He paused briefly. But I am standing here because she deserves to hear something I should have said years ago. Looking directly at Olivia, he offered the words without hesitation. Thank you. And I am sorry. The theater remained silent for several seconds before gentle applause began spreading throughout the room. Olivia stood motionless. Her eyes reflected emotion, but not anger, not bitterness, simply understanding. For Ethan, the moment felt strangely peaceful. Because for the first time since Christmas night 2 years earlier, he stopped trying to defend himself. He stopped searching for excuses. He finally accepted responsibility for the pain he caused. And standing beneath the holiday lights, he discovered that honesty, though painful, carried a kind of freedom he had never known before. After the fundraiser ended, guests slowly departed into the snowy December evening. The theater lights dimmed one by one, leaving behind only a handful of staff members finishing their work. Olivia remained inside for a while, reviewing final notes from the event and thanking volunteers personally. Nearly everyone had left when she finally stepped outside. Snowflakes drifted gently through the cold air, settling across sidewalks and rooftops. The city seemed quieter now, peaceful. As she adjusted her coat and prepared to walk toward her car, she noticed someone standing near the edge of the parking area. Ethan. He was not waiting beside her vehicle. He was not blocking her path. He simply stood beneath a street lamp, hands in his coat pockets, looking out at the falling snow. For a moment, neither moved. Then Olivia approached. "You are still here." Ethan smiled softly. "I suppose I needed a few minutes." She nodded. The silence between them felt different than it once had. Years ago it was filled with disappointment and unspoken frustration. Now it carried honesty, acceptance, growth. After several moments, Ethan spoke. "I meant every word tonight." Olivia looked toward the snow-covered street. "I know." His expression revealed relief. Not because she forgave him, because she believed him. There was a difference. They walked slowly along the sidewalk, neither in a hurry to leave. The city lights reflected against the snow, creating a glow that made everything seem softer. "I spent a long time thinking about what I wanted from life," Olivia said quietly. "After I left." Ethan listened carefully. "At first I thought I needed answers. Then I realized I needed peace." He nodded. "Did you find it?" Olivia smiled. "Eventually." The answer carried a calm confidence that only comes from experience. Ethan looked down briefly before speaking again. "I used to think success meant achieving more, earning more, building more." He laughed softly at himself. "Turns out I understood very little." Olivia glanced at him. People learn at different times. Ethan stopped walking. Snowflakes settled across his shoulders. "I do not expect anything from you." His voice remained steady. "I need you to know that." She studied him carefully. For the first time in years, she saw no desperation, no attempt to persuade, no effort to manipulate the outcome, only sincerity. Ethan continued. "Whether we ever become part of each other's lives again is your choice. But regardless of what happens, I am grateful for everything you gave me." Emotion touched Olivia's eyes, not because of the words themselves, but because of who he had become. The man standing before her was very different from the one who spent Christmas chasing temporary happiness while taking lasting love for granted. Growth had not arrived through promises. It arrived through humility, through accountability, through time. They resumed walking. Ahead of them stood a small public square decorated with a large Christmas tree. White lights shimmered against the falling snow. Families passed nearby carrying shopping bags and cups of hot chocolate. Life moved forward around them. Finally, Olivia stopped and turned toward Ethan. "I cannot erase the past." He nodded. "Neither can I." She smiled gently. "But I do believe people can change." Ethan's eyes filled with quiet emotion. Olivia reached into her purse and removed a small envelope. "This is a list of community projects our organization plans to launch next year." Ethan accepted it carefully, confused. "Why are you giving me this?" Her smile widened. "Because I think you would like to help." For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Ethan laughed quietly, overwhelmed by a feeling he had not experienced in years. Hope. Not certainty. Not guarantees. Just hope. As they stood beneath the Christmas lights while snow continued falling around them, both understood that the greatest gift life sometimes offers is not a second chance at the past. It is the opportunity to build something better in the future. And for the first time since that lonely Christmas night, the path ahead no longer looked defined by regret. It looked defined by possibility.